Hello and welcome to the Hibs Observer Thursday afternoon. Oh, yeah, Thursday afternoon. We're in the afternoon now. A long day already. Briefing with myself, Liam Bryce, joined by Matty Fairnie to look ahead to Saturday's clash with Ross County. And also today, we're going to have a look at quite a few of the Hibs players who are entering the final 6 months of their contract come January. Matty, first of all, thank you as always for joining us. How are you getting on?
Good, thanks. Yeah, as you were kind of referencing, it feels like it's been a long day already. It feels like it should be Friday already,
Aye,
which is a bit
aye.
disappointing when you mentioned the Thursday part of that sentence.
I know. I've taken the wind out of your sails already. We've not even talked about Hibs yet, but we're there. We're almost there. It's almost Friday. We are almost there. Yeah, we'll crack on. But obviously, there was a bit of some sad news coming through this morning. The death of Hibs legend Alex Edwards, aged 78, made 215 appearances for the club, scoring 12 goals. He was a part of the 1972 League Cup winning side, and he was inducted into the Hibs Hall of Fame just recently there in October. So, I mean, sad news to start the day with, Matty, a Hibs legend.
Yeah, definitely. It's always sad to hear of the passing of anybody associated with the club, but particularly when it's a club legend. Before my time, so I was never fortunate enough to see him play, but he was a player that my old man certainly spoke about quite a lot, and yeah, it's definitely sad news, and thoughts are with his friends and family.
Yeah, we pass on condolences to Alex's friends and family after that sad news this morning. As I said at the top of the show, folks, we're going to start today just a certain accompaniment to an article we had on the website yesterday. You can read that on hibsobserver.co.uk. Just basically looking, there's so many Hibs players out of contract at the end of this season. And I think it was one of the first things, I think, when we did the interview with Malky Mackay shortly after he got the job, he sort of alluded to the amount of change that there's going to be this coming summer, just with the amount of players that Hibs expect to leave. But I mean, you'd imagine that there may be at least some who are sticking around, who are possibly being offered new contracts. So we're going to have a look at that. Just a word though before we get started: if you are watching us on YouTube, and you'll see the banner that has just disappeared with terrible timing there, as if it's about to draw attention to it. And then it's back. You can support the channel by subscribing to us, folks. We are pushing towards 1,000 subscribers. So obviously, first of all, a huge thank you to everybody who has subscribe so far. It's obviously free to subscribe on YouTube, and you'll get all of these videos with Matty, videos with myself and Patrick after every game, and then on Monday it's always myself and Patrick with Craig Nisbet for a tactical analysis of the game. So if you have been watching those and you haven't yet subscribed, do consider hitting that button, because it means you get a notification every time we go live and you'll never miss a show. So Matty, let's crack on. I'm going to throw a few names at you. We'll probably not get through every one of the players who are out of contract or will be here for quite a long time, but we're just going to have a look possibly at the standout ones, the ones that are going to be perhaps the bigger talking points between now and whenever a decision is made on their future. So I suppose the standout one, really, given his reputation, what he's done for the club, is Martin Boyle. He's entering the last 6 months of his contract come January. Obviously means he'll be free to speak to other clubs. Obviously, it's known that there's been interest in him from the A-League in Australia, Matty, and he spoke a bit about it last summer. I think the kind of interviews he did with the Australian TV didn't exactly play down the prospect, but when he came back, he was actually quite keen to come out and kind of set the record straight that he wasn't going anywhere immediately. So, I mean, he's been out of the team for a while, Martin Boyle. David Gray's relegated him to the bench. Where do you think his future lies?
I think it's a difficult one with Boyle because he always has that connection with the club, very popular with the fans. And he has been over the years a pretty talismanic figure at Easter Road. But I don't think that's the Martin Boyle that we have today. Certainly this season, we haven't really seen it from him, despite a really promising start in the League Cup campaign. He looked really good. Like he was scoring overhead kicks and terrorising defences, as you would kind of expect from Martin Boyle. But since then, he's not really kicked on. He's found himself out of the team. I believe he's one of the higher earners at the club as well, which I think will definitely come into consideration as they look to free up budget. And I think if you're looking at a team that's sitting at the bottom of the league as we are today, and you've got players there who are earning a good wage, who are not contributing to the first team on a regular basis, there probably is a big question mark over their future. And I think if I was David Gray and Malky Mackay sitting assessing it, I would probably be erring towards moving Martin Boyle on rather than looking to extend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose as well that you've kind of touched on there that he's one of the higher earners. If he's not going to be a guaranteed starter as he has been for so many years, if there is a new contract coming his way, would you imagine that the contract would reflect the fact that there's an altered role in the team, and it's whether Boyle wants to accept that? The prospect of obviously going to Australia, as we know, there's been interest there at this stage of his career. It must be quite an attractive prospect. So there's quite an awful lot to weigh up for Martin Boyle, even if he is offered a new contract.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. That it's not only going to be Hibs' decision and what happens next. Martin Boyle will have that that role in deciding if there's a contract on the table, whether it's up to what he was expecting or hoping. I don't know. I think if I was Martin Boyle at the stage of the career that he's at, and he's got the opportunity to go to Australia, I think that would be tempting as well. He's obviously enjoyed his time with the international team there. He's in the latter stages. It almost feels like he's in a bit of the wind down of his time at Hibs anyway. So now might be a sort of opportune moment for him to go.
Yeah, I think in any line of work, Australia would be a
tempting
move for anybody, would it?
I wouldn't be devastated if he stayed, though. Do you know, he's popular enough with the support, and I'm very, very fond of Martin Boyle. Like I have to say, if it was similar, like when Stevenson and Hanlon were, it was known that they were going. You knew it was probably the right thing for the club, but there's that tinge of sadness as well. I'm very, very fond of Boyle. And
it's at a point where you're not going to turn around and say, I want Martin Boyle to go, are you? That's just not going to happen. Even if you are maybe erring towards that now might be the right time for not now. I say 6 months time or so might be the right time for everybody. It's not like it's not as if it's going to be somebody who you're actively wanting the club to get rid of, if you like. So who else have we got? I mean, we might as well go to Boyle's Australia international teammate. We've got Lewis Miller out of contract at the end of this season. No, it's clearly a player that David Gray rates. I think the quote from Gray a couple of months ago was that he felt that he could. That's a direct quote. He could be anything he wants to be in the game. But he can be a frustrating figure among fans. Lewis Miller, I think that's that much is obvious. I don't think it's controversial to say that, because I think part of it comes from where he's got a lot of the tools you would think to be at least a very good SPFL level player. I don't know if he's, it's not for maybe me to say what his ceiling is, how far he could go, but there's a lot of sort of raw attributes there. But it seems to be at times putting it all together consistently for Lewis Miller. So I don't know. Would you agree with that, Matty? And where would you stand on his future?
I think the thing with Miller is he has time on his side. He came to Scotland. It's a big step up from the A-League, and he's come in as a young player in a tough environment. Coming into a team that's not been playing particularly well is difficult as well. A lot of upheaval with managers, and if I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, you'd probably make some allowances for the amount of adjusting that he's had to do. I like him as a player. I think he has the attributes and the potential, but there's definitely like a level that he has to step up to if he's going to be like a guaranteed starter if Hibs are knocking on third or fourth in the league. So I don't think he would walk into Aberdeen's team or Rangers team, for example, and he might get a game for Dundee United. But I think if you're comparing him with teams at that level, I think he's got a bit to go before he gets there. But if I was David Gray, I would probably be tempted to chuck another couple of years at him and see how he gets on. I think we have invested a lot of time into Miller, and to see him go for nothing or nearly nothing would probably be sticking the throat a wee bit. So I think another couple of years isn't out of the question.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree with yourself on that. I think he is perhaps a player that is, as you've said, kind of worth investing in. Still, he's had to make a huge adjustment coming halfway across the world. As you say, different type of league, playing in it. It can't be understated sometimes for guys who are coming across halfway across the world to then play in a team that isn't consistently doing very well. And he does seem to, I think, he seems to like that wing back role a wee bit more than just playing as a conventional fullback. So, but I suppose we can't. If you're going to discuss Miller, then there's a couple other factors that come into that as well. There's the fact that Chris Cadden, who's competing with him for playing right back, is also coming at the end of his contract. And then I think the other factor that's maybe not directly considered is, Kanayo Megwa went on loan to Partick Thistle, but in the midst of that, well, as part of that agreement, he signed a new contract with Hibs. So it's an indication from the club that they do see him having a future. So does it feel to you that, would you be surprised to, what I'm kind of getting to is, would you be surprised to see both Miller, Cadden and Megwa all at Hibs next season? Do you think there's at least one player there who's going to leave?
Yeah, I would think so. And probably the natural one to look at moving on there is Cadden, just because of the age profile. And if you're bringing players through, then you need to sort of create that pathway. I would say for Lewis Miller, if he's going to stay, he has to sort out his shorts. Like, we can't have another couple of years of having one leg higher than the other and all this kind of nonsense. He needs to just get that straightened out right away.
Yeah, you put that as a clause in the contract.
100%,
if it was forthcoming.
It would be going in. Megwa's an interesting one. So I think Megwa's done well at, when he's been out on loan. He looks like a proper emerging talent, very highly thought of at Hibs. But when he's featured for the first team, I don't think he's looked like he's really at that level yet. But obviously, he's had another season out on loan to kind of make that step up. And sooner or later, Hibs have to give him an opportunity. So I think I would probably move Cadden on to create the space for Miller and Megwa to develop. As harsh as that is on Cadden, but I don't think Cadden's like a stick-on starter enough that you would move heaven and earth to keep him. So that's probably how I'd do that.
The same way as with Boyle, there's maybe Cadden's perspective on it as well. If he's, the age he's at now, he's going to want to be playing every week. If he can't get a guarantee of that at Hibs, if Hibs are, if there's another two right backs there to compete with, and he himself might feel that that now is maybe the right time for him to go and try and play every week somewhere, because he's not, he's kind of flitted between at times that right wing and that right back position, but you wouldn't expect him, I think, any time in the future. And this is not a kind of slight on Chris Cadden. He's a very kind of reliable, steady player, very committed, very experienced, and he has some quality there into the bargain as well. But I don't think at any point you would expect him to be first choice in either of those roles. So I suppose he is maybe if you're long-term planning, he might end up being the odd man out. So again, and this is an interesting one to come to as well, because I think, maybe even about a month ago, you would have thought maybe it's kind of, it looks as though looking pretty likely that Rocky Bashiri would be one of the ones who's moved on, but he's become really important to the way the team have played over these past few weeks. There's always been this kind of consensus that he would be a bit better suited to playing in a defensive three, and he's looked very good in that. But do you still expect him to be somebody who moves on at the end of the season? Because it's, again, coming to the end of the contract, do you want Hibs to look at other options in that position? Where do you stand on Rocky? Because his performances recently have maybe just shown a wee kind of, not a seed of doubt, if you like, but just a kind of bit of pause for thought as to what he could maybe contribute, if that is how Hibs want to play going forward.
Yeah, it's a funny one with Rocky. Again, another player that I'm fond of, and I like to see Rocky doing well. I had a conversation outside Dens Park before they opened the gates when we were up there the other week. Funny enough, with the guys that sit next to me in the West Stand, and we were talking about Rocky, and we saying Rocky can play brilliantly for 8 to 9 minutes, and then he has a moment in a match that costs a goal. He switches off for a minute. We saw it happened in Dundee. He got caught in possession for their fourth goal. Ironically, the very night that we were talking about it. And although he has come in and we've looked better defensively, I think the last 3 games we've conceded 6 goals. It's not like we've been terrific.
Yep.
In the back, we are still looking vulnerable and vulnerable at crosses as well, which has been our sort of Achilles heel for a wee while. I think Hibs need better. I think Hibs need better right across the back four, though. I don't think it's just or the back three. I don't think it's just Rocky. I think O'Hora and Ekpiteta have looked decent, but not terrific. And I think any one of those players could be kind of questioning whether they're a stick on for next season if we're able to bring in better players. And probably Rocky being out of contract maybe suits us because we can free up a wage again and bring somebody else in to fill that space. But I think it'd be harsh. And I suppose if the counter to that is he's another young player that we've invested a couple of years in, and you might want to kind of to put another. He's good enough at the level we're at You know, he can come in and he's adequate. I just don't think he takes us up a level,
Yeah.
which is the
And
issue.
And there has been interest in him from England before. I remember that there
Mhm.
was kind of that speculation and rumours floating about kind of this time last year, I think it was. So again, it can come down to the player as well if he wants to move on and seek a new challenge. So just a couple more before we move it on to Saturday's game. I mean, where do you? I think to me, Jake Doyle Hayes, it looks as though he's the best thing perhaps for him and Hibs for him to get his career back on track is maybe for a player like him to move on. I know he's had a hellish time over the last whatever 18 months. He has been in and around the squad again these past few weeks. I know he's got in the squad ahead of guys, say maybe like Nathan Mariah Welsh, but he's only managed those 7 minutes. I mean, it's I think he's been one of those players because of the issues he's had. You know, a lot of Hibs fans have been sort of willing him to do well, but do you feel he's maybe one of those ones that's almost a stick on to move on?
Yeah, I don't think there's a case to be made for
Yeah,
keeping him. I think if you had a midfielder that was like if it was the quality of a John McGinn and he'd been unlucky with injuries, you would probably say, maybe chance another year, see if we can get him playing. But he was never brilliant for us anyway.
yeah,
He was. I used the word adequate again, and maybe that's a wee bit unkind because he did have good games, but I think he's a decent SPFL level midfielder when we've seen him. But for the whole time that he's been here, and it's not his fault because it's injuries and it's no slight on him, but he represents terrible value for money in terms of minutes on the pitch. And it was the same
yeah.
with Kyle McGuinness when we had him. With the best will in the world, it's not the player's fault, but I don't think Hibs have got the resources to pay for a player not to play for another
Mm-hmm.
couple of years. And as harsh as it is, they probably need to just kind of cut ties.
Yeah, that is the thing about this coming summer. It's going to have to be harsh decisions, isn't it? Maybe a
Mhm.
lot of them taking the emotion out of it, and I suppose that's Gavin Stewart coming in. That's probably going to be part of his role. Somebody who's not been around the club coming in with kind of outside perspective. I know he'll be working closely with the likes of Malky Mackay and David Gray. Will not be as in not a dictatorship as such, where he's
Mhm.
just coming and saying you and you're off. But kind of bringing in that outside perspective probably is maybe a view to making some tough decisions. So I mean, there's another few guys who I think who are probably, as I say, pretty likely to move on. I mean, you'd probably put, for example, you put Harry McCurdy in the same bracket as
Yeah.
Jake Doyle Hayes. Again, somebody who it seems like a lot of fans have really wanted it to work out for, but it just hasn't, has it really?
Yeah, that's spot on. And I think it's just one of these things. Sometimes it doesn't work for a player. It doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad player. They're just not being a right fit for the club that they've come into. And however much everybody's wanted it to work for McCurdy, and I'm sure he wanted it to work as well, it just hasn't. And I think there's no point in prolonging the agony for everybody. Just let him get on with his career somewhere else where he can be happy.
Yeah, they're guys who need to get their careers back on track, and it's probably not going to happen at Hibs. I mean, you put Luke Amos, he came in
Mhm.
last January, had issues with fitness since he's come to Hibs, had issues with fitness long before he came. So there are guys who I think who just need to go somewhere where they're going to be guaranteed playing time every week because it's the only way they're going to get their careers back on track. As I said, not plenty, quite a few more in the article, folks. If you want to go and check that out, some guys who are obviously going to move on. There's a few there who are on 1-year deals, who we'll find out about in the coming months as well. But I think one thing is guaranteed: it is going to be a summer of change, and that process could even start in January if Hibs can agree deals for some guys to move on before the end of their contracts. But I'm sure there's going to be a few who will leave for free in the summer. But as we were saying, it'll be interesting to see what happens with certain individuals because some of them are clear cut, some of them not so much. We'll move on to Saturday's game in a moment, folks. But just if you're joined us a wee bit late, can I again direct you just to the banner at the bottom of the screen, which is again disappeared just as I started talking about it. I think it's doing that deliberately. So just to support the channel by subscribing. We are making a push towards 1,000 subscribers. Thanks to everybody who's signed up so far. And if you do hit subscribe, it does mean you get notified every time we go live. And yeah, so you'll never miss a show. So, Matty, Saturday's game, it's Ross County at home. Not one you really look to when the fixture list comes out during the summer, but in the context of Hibs season, the way things have gone in the past few weeks, it's a huge game, isn't it?
Yeah, biggest game of the season, I think, so far. Uh, for all number of reasons, I think if we win, we can go up to eighth, which makes a massive difference to how everybody's feeling. But the big thing for me is that it's another one of these games where you look at the fixture and you think, if we win the day, and it should be one that we do, that when we've had them over the last however many, the season and a half, we've lost them or not won them. We've maybe been in a winning position and chucked it and drawn the game or lost it, and that's how we've ended up in the position that we're in. So I think it will tell us a lot about the team if they turn up on Saturday. It reminds me of the Motherwell game after we played Rangers, and everyone was really positive despite the defeat to Rangers that we put in a good performance, and we thought, if we can carry that on against Motherwell, we'll be all right. And we were okay in that game, but we ended up losing it, and then everybody was totally deflated after it, and it took us a while to get back on track. I think somebody sent us a stat and said it was like 9 games before we won.
Yeah.
After that one, so we had a good performance last week. We need to build on it, and there's no other acceptable outcome for Hibs other than a win on Saturday. Like a draw is no good. We've got a tough run of fixtures coming up. We have to get 3 points on Saturday, no matter what.
Aye, and I think it's even more in focus when you look at Ross County's away record. I think it's been a couple of times now that they haven't won an away game in the league for well over a year. So it's kind of everything is sort of just, I don't know, converging, combining to that there's simply no way that Hibs can lose this game. Would even a draw would that be a disaster for you? Or
yeah, I think a draw is unacceptable. We've got a couple of home games coming up, and then we're away to in between. Like our December, we're away to Aberdeen, we're away to Hearts, and I think we're home to Ross County and Kilmarnock. I think if we win the 2 home games and avoid defeating the away ones, that's a really good December for us, and we'll probably be all right for the rest of the season. We have to get start the ball rolling on Saturday with the win, though. I think even for David Gray, I know that I would want to kind of be talking about pressure on the manager again after he sort of almost rode out the last wee bit of pressure that he was under. When that statement was made after the St Mirren game, and they talked about there needs to be an improvement. If we don't win on Saturday, then it's 1 win in I think 5 games, which isn't acceptable, and we'd still be down at the bottom of the league, which isn't acceptable. And I think just everything that comes along with that is going to be terrible. The fallout if we fail to win on Saturday will be huge, and I wonder what it will mean for the rest of the season if that happens.
Because it feels like a psychological test as much as anything for all the factors that you've mentioned there, because there's no kind of doubt that Hibs are good enough to beat Ross County. If they reach the levels that I know they went down 3-0 in the end at Celtic Park, but some of the levels they reached in that game, the game against Motherwell, it's no disrespect to Ross County. Obviously, they're above Hibs in the league, but if you compare the squads, and the players, it's the onus should really be on Hibs to win this game. But does the psychological pressure of it, does it take a toll? And it'll tell. I think apologies if I'm just repeating here, but you learn an awful lot about where this side is at. If these improved performances really mean anything, has the change of shape, has it really helped them turn a corner? Are these guys now playing with more confidence? It's I know you've already said it again, but it's hard to understate really just how important this is.
I think we will win, though.
I
do think we're a better team than Ross County, and as much as the league table tells you otherwise, if we win, we leapfrog them, and it will reflect that I think that we're a better team than them. But it is that psychological thing. I think Hibs probably need to score early and just relax everybody. I think the longer the game goes on, where we're not in front, and particularly if we go behind, I think it becomes a really difficult environment for the team to kind of lift things. So we need to start on the front foot. We need to ideally get an early goal, settle the nerves, and then see where that takes us. But absolutely have to win. I mean, that's like a non-negotiable. If I was David Gray going into that dressing room before the game, that would be the message to the team: is anything other than a win is unacceptable.
Yeah, aye, and he's got a big decision or a big problem to solve almost, David Gray, with his team selection. He was speaking to the Edinburgh Evening News this week, and it looks like Mikola Kukarevich is going to be out for at least a few weeks. They are hoping to have him back for the Edinburgh Derby on Boxing Day. So it gives the great decision to make. Does he bring in Dwight Gale? Does he move Ellie Yuan into that central striking role? What do you think he'll do to combat that problem?
I wouldn't be adverse to seeing Gale starting. I think Gale's maybe been a wee bit hard done to. Obviously, he's had a bit of an injury and stuff, so I'm not quite sure what his fitness is like. But I think people forget that at 34, he's not like 64. He can start games of football and you maybe get 70 minutes out of him rather than 20 minutes.
I think he looks at some of the things that are said about him and his age and thinks, "I'm not an old man. I mean, I can."
It's mental. I wish I was 34 again. I look at it and go, surely he could play 70 minutes. You could or probably even 90 minutes. But we don't know the full picture, obviously. But if Gale started, I think that would be fine. Yuan going through the middle and bringing Hoylett back into the team would work as well. There are a couple of options. Even Boyle can play through the middle. I probably would be tempted to start with Gale, more so because Boyle and Yuan's strengths are about getting in behind and using their pace. But I think Ross County will sit quite deep in the game, and it's a bit harder to take advantage of that space in behind. Whereas Dwight Gale is a sort of natural striker and will know how to find space in the box for for crosses, etc., coming in a bit better. So I would probably err towards Gale, but I think that there's good options there either way.
Yeah, does have options, David Gray, which is obviously a positive, something he probably didn't have not too long ago. But yeah, I think I would be inclined to agree. I think you bring in maybe the likes of Hoylett and put Gale up top, just a bit of kind of experience, a bit of know-how, and trying to unlock, because it's just going to be as good as the performance was, and times against Celtic, just some of the attacking play. It's going to be a completely different game in terms of it's almost not quite to the same extremes, but almost a kind of role reversal of how it would be. You'd expect Ross County, as you said, to sit in. So it's a completely different type of test, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Hibs are not always great at dealing with these tests, as we've seen. So it's almost like the bigger games suit us a wee bit better. Although we lost 3-0 in the end to Celtic, we put in a good performance, created a lot of chances. But I think we created chances because Celtic are so open, and we were able to kind of expose the gaps at the left. Whereas we're going to have to chip away at Ross County and find a way to do it. I think this is the sort of game where you're looking at your midfielders to maybe take a few digs from outside the box and don't feel like you have to walk the ball into the net. I think we're quite guilty of that a lot of the time, is that we look for the perfect goal. We're trying to work into these fantastic positions to score where really you could kind of get to the edge of the box and put your laces through the ball. And we saw it against Aberdeen where Neil skipped one and it deflected in. And
I mean, there's a lot of bodies that in between you and the goal that can happen, can it?
That's it. And once you get a goal, Ross County have to come out. The game changes. So I think that's probably another thing that I'd be saying to the players is, don't feel you need to be walking the ball into the net. Just if you get the chance, try and hit the target and see what happens.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think early goal, as you said, is crucial and a good start. And to be fair, Hibs have started the last few games very well. Yeah, it's given the crowd something to latch onto, isn't it, to stop that kind of anxiety kicking in the longer it goes on.
Yeah, definitely. I think the crowd are all desperate to get behind the team as well. And I think if we do start strongly, then the fans will be there for the word go, and they will get right behind the team. It's just when we kick off and we're on the back foot right away that folk get frustrated, because you've seen that story so many times before, and we know how it ends. So yeah, get off to a good start is massive.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to leave it there, folks, for today. Thanks, as always, for joining us. Thanks to Matty for joining us. It's press conference day at HTC tomorrow, so we'll get further updates from David Gray and a member of the first team squad heading into, as we've just discussed, a huge game for Hibs. Biggest game of the season, Matty says, and I'm inclined to agree, just in the context of what it could mean moving forward. So stay tuned to the Hibs Observer website. We'll have all the updates from the press conference tomorrow and obviously on Saturday, our usual match coverage. Thanks again, Matty, for joining us, and thanks to yourselves, folks, for tuning in. We'll speak to you again very, very soon. Cheers.